startup conference, I'm glad to represent the startup. Unlike Skype or SoundCloud, we're 14 people, so I hope that I can give the same presentation, but from a much smaller fish's view. As Mike kindly said about us, 2 years ago we started working on a very, very simple idea, and it was to create an online store creator for the mainstream, for the moms and pops, just like a Tumblr of e-commerce, if you so will. And it actually started with a moms and the pops. It started with this store. The first store on our platform was my mother's ceramics store. And now, 2 years later, we power more than 30,000 stores in 110 markets. It's everything from like tech magazines like the Next Web that use it to sell their merchandise, to Kickstarter campaigns that graduate to Tictail after a successful campaign, to global brands like Lufthansa that might not use Tictail as their sole e-commerce platform, but since we made it so simple and flexible, they start experimenting with it and they create pop-up stores. In this specific example, Lufthansa collaborated with galleries in Berlin. They took their artwork and they made it available online. The twist was that if you bought any of these paintings, a ticket to Berlin to pick it up in the gallery was included in the price. So while we thought that we would power these kind of customers, this is a small independent publisher in the UK, our platform has shifted, and the idea that we initially thought we had has also shifted and become what the users made of it. At the core of Tictail, we have a unique interface that essentially helps people to become experts at marketing. I'm not so lucky with this one. So that's just a brief introduction to Tictail. What I wanted to talk about today is ideas versus teams, and when does an idea become important, and when does the team and the culture and the organization become more important? Lately, I've been invited to more conferences. I speak with more journalists, and it's interesting that most of the times they ask me the exact same question. It's like, Carl, and they look at you very seriously. How did you guys come up with the idea of Tictail? And I think that when it comes to entrepreneurship and startups, we have this notion that a startup roots from a eureka moment, an epiphany. You're lost in the desert, you haven't had water in several weeks, and then it hits you. You know exactly what to do and when. From my point of view, this is not the way the world looks today. Like 20 years or something like that into the consumer web, that's not the case anymore. I'd like to make the case, I'd like to start this presentation by speaking about a company that was an extremely inspiring company, Kodak. Kodak owned one of the most important or interesting slogans in the world. They owned Kodak moments. Like whenever there was a good photography, we immediately thought, oh, this is a Kodak moment. It's one of the strongest brand statements there is. But when I, at some point, have like grandchildren, which is a scary thought for me, will say to them, wow, this is a Kodak moment. They will look at me and think I smell funny and that I'm very old. Because Kodak kind of missed out on photos and exposure becoming digital, and that photos will no longer be in print. And Flickr came along and owned that space. Flickr's idea was to make photos available on the web and sharing. But Flickr also kind of missed out on the fact that it wasn't about sharing photos, it was about taking photos and doing so through mobile. And I think what happens is that when companies become too attached to their idea or what they are, they expose themselves to huge risk of being disrupted. So when I think about Tictail, I don't think of it as an idea. Tictail is not about helping people to create simple online stores. Because ideas change. That's the way the world looks like today. The world changes all the time, so ideas change. That's the nature of ideas. What doesn't have to change in a company is the team and the culture. That's the strong foundation. That's the idea. That's what you're building. This is my company idea. It's our team. It's 15 people and the way we're organized. And And that's been working fairly well so far. So when I think about my job as CEO of our company and the founder of our company, I don't think of my job is to build a product. It's not to build a product. It's to build an organization and a culture of innovation. And what that means is that you have to stop thinking of yourself as the sole entrepreneur in your company and stop hiring for skills, but for persona and for mindset. So when we look for a designer or when we look for a developer, we never look for just the skills. That's like 50% of it. It's how they think about product. Are they equally passionate about the space? Because at the end of the day, like, I'm no Steve Jobs. We share a similar taste in eyewear, but that's as far as it goes. Because I think that you used to think of like great companies as this sole visionary, an entrepreneur that saw the future and could lead the way. But that's not the way I think of most companies. I mean, there are people that can do that, but I think most companies are not driven to success by doing so. So what we used to think of our company, or the way I used to think about our company, was that I would sit in my chambers, I would sit over the weekend, and I would come up with the ideas I thought were important to us, the features that I thought would drive Tictail's development, and I would just imagine the results they would give to us. And then I would come back to the office and I would organize the entire team around building this one feature and then expect a result. One of my most important learnings in these first 2 years has been that, in fact, the process is supposed to be flipped. What I do now is that I no longer come out to our organization and say, this is the feature we're building. I rather steer the vision and direction of our company by saying, these are the KPIs, these are the results, the metrics that are important to us to succeed and to reach our vision. So I might say something like, oh, what we really need to focus on right now are weekly active users. And then I have a team, and a team in our organization can never be smaller than 3 people, 2 engineers and 1 designer, and never bigger than 5 people. And then these 5 people, they get this expected result, but I never tell them what to build or how to reach those results. And then it's up to them to constantly iterate and build ideas that will lead them to that result. I like this quote. I've not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work, when we're speaking about light bulbs. It's Thomas Edison. And what this does, by flipping the process like this, is that people no longer dare to spend all of their time and their luck on one assumption. They automatically come into a data-driven state of mind where they continuously try different ideas to push us towards that result. So if I would have thought that the idea of Tictail was to help people create online stores, then I think that would be an idea that would quickly become like exposed to a lot of risk. Rather than creating a vision saying that Tictail helps build entrepreneurs, which is a vision that sort of never ends and is not tied to features. I mean, the way we've implemented it is essentially like OKRs, objective key results, and there's a really great video from Google Ventures about OKRs. But essentially, the way we organize our company and our teams is that we have a company goal, and then each team in our company, they set their own goals based on the company goal. And then each person in each team sets their personal goals based on their team's goal. And what this does is that it creates a culture of empowerment, because people own the features, they own the ideas that they're building, and they start feeling more passionately and strongly about them. We start moving much, much faster because we're extremely focused on the numbers that matter. And we become not a data-driven organization by implementing an analytics tool. We become a data-driven organization because it's the only way for the teams to evaluate if they're on the right track. This is Tictail, this is our idea, and that's my lousy Twitter name. Thanks.